Hello, you folks out in YouTube land. Here's another Mark Allyn trying to make something, videos to do something that I was unable to do and trying to make up for it. So what I'm going to try to do, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. By the way, it's raining out. That's why I'm wearing this. And I have to keep the door open, otherwise the welding fumes will poison me, and that's that. So I'm trying to be able to take a cake or brownies or anything that's baked on my bicycle without having a disaster. Now, the last time I tried to bring some baked goods on my bicycle, I was back in Boston, Massachusetts, and I was riding my bicycle on the, I guess they call it the Salt and Paper Bridge, or the whatever the hell bridge between MIT and Boston, and the bicycle hit a bump, and the brownies I was carrying went flying all over. So all the pigeons who would normally habitat the Longfellow Bridge had a wonderful treat, because many of them probably had a upset stomach after that, but that's a whole other part. So I figured, okay, well, that's not a good way to do it, just to try to strap a baking pan on the back of the bicycle. So I'm going to try to come up with a cage. A metal cage that's larger than a baking pan and higher. Then what I would do is bungee cord the cage to the rear pannier rack of the bicycle. And the pan with whatever I'm baking is going to be inside that cage. And I don't care if it bounces around a little bit, as long as it doesn't bounce out of the cage and onto the street wherever I'm wiring. Where I'm riding, not wiring. Okay. So what I've got is a bunch of parts from old bicycles that I got for free at a bike shop. I do a lot of what's called chopping. Chopping, I take old bicycles, chop them up so I have the individual components of the frame like this. Once I chop them up, then I'm going to try to figure out how to make it. Now, I'm the kind of person who likes to design things as I make them. But bear in mind, I have no idea what the thing's going to look like when I start making it. Just like this shirt. When I made this shirt, I had no idea what it was going to look like. I started with the front. And I designed it as I made it. I had no idea what the back is going to look like. When I did the back, I had no idea what the sleeves are going to look like until it's done. That's the same with this project. I have a rough idea of what I'm going to try to do, but the journey of doing it is as fun as having the thing I made, and it will most likely be very different than what's in here right now. All right, now I've scraped the paint off of these, as well as scraping off the various braze-ons. As you know, a bicycle frame often has braze-ons to hold shifters and brakes and all kinds of stuff. So those all had to be scraped off. So this was a bit of a tedious job. Now I have 4 pieces. This is going to form the bottom of what I envision the cage will look something like this. These are the sides, and these are the ends. So it's going to look probably something like this, maybe, okay? Now, I decided to use the really long pieces because generally when I bring a dessert to a function, I wrap it in towels to keep it warm. So that's going to take up more space. So I decided to make this larger. So basically it's going to look something like this for the bottom. Then I'll find some scrap steel and create a frame or a rack to hold whatever I'm taking. And I've got lots of silverware from previous projects, bits and pieces of stainless steel flatware. I'll run these along the side and along the edge, just kind of act like a cage. Then I will create some sort of bridge on each end or each side, so I can bungee cord it down, but yet keep the bungee cord off and away from whatever I'm carrying. I'm anticipating that the bicycle would be like this. So this would be right angles to the rear of the bicycle. So it will be bungee corded to the rear pannier rack at right angles. Since this is a bit long, we do it this way, and it won't be too much. The width of this will not be too much longer than the length of the rear pannier rack. My next step now is to take each of the ends of the long pieces, and I have to conform the ends so they can conform around the circumference of the end pieces. So which means I have to take this tool, which is called a pole grinder. This is essentially a a Dremel tool on steroids. The carbide bit spins just like a Dremel tool. This is hard enough that it will cut into the chromoly steel for these tubes. I want to carefully grind this so this conforms to the side of this. It's a very tedious, laborious task. I just finished notching each one of these. They look something like this. The next step is to weld them. This is going to be a bit tedious. I'm just going to show you stuff getting started on one of the corners. I'll proceed to do the rest of them off camera. I'll take two of these, something like this, and I'll take this piece, which is notched, and put it against the side of the end piece, something like this. So the notch fits around the side of the end piece like that. So do somehow clamp these down so they won't go wandering all over the place while I'm trying to weld this. We'll take that, take one of these like that, clamp that down, like something like this. And mind you, everything here is impromptu. It probably doesn't follow good shop practices at all. But I'm not taking a shop class. I don't care if I flunk the exam tonight. Just want to get this thing done because I have to deliver a dessert, some homemade brownies to a banquet sometime, tomorrow sometime. So I gotta get this thing done, hook or crook, one way or another, even if it doesn't look perfect. So since this is not really carrying a very heavy load, I don't really care if the welds are really perfect. If it breaks apart, so what? Just more pigeons would have brownies. So this is chromoly steel. So I'm going to be doing a TIG, a gas tungsten arc welding, DC, electronegative with a steel filler rod. You're going chromoly to chromoly. Chromoly is the kind of steel they use for bicycle frames, so it's fairly common. It's also used for roll bar cages on racing cars, so it's a pretty good robust steel, and it is forgiving if I make mistakes or the welds are not perfect. So here we go. I'm just going to do one of these on camera, then we'll skip the rest of them. Okay, first of all, good news, it stopped raining out. Also, I just completed the base of the frame. Now, by the way, this was chromoly TIG welded with ER80 fill rod, which, by the way, ironically, is the full approved welding method for chromoly for NASCAR. So for their roll bars for their cars. So at least I think I'm doing something right. This will be strong enough to hold a cake or brownies on my bicycle. So my next step is to come up with something to actually hold the item in this, maybe some scrap tubing, a scrap steel to come across here. And then I'm going to grab a bunch of these parts of knives and weld them facing up like this to act like a cage. So again, what I'm going to make are the two kind of bridges, one on either side of the frame, be here and here, to hold up the bungee cord. So it would look something like, probably something like that on this side, similar on the other side. And this would rest on the pannier rack, and the bungee cord would come up over this and the similar one and down, and the cake or brownies would be resting on here. So this would prevent the bungee cord from coming into the cake, but yet hold it down on the bike. So I'm going to do now, I'm going to set the frame aside. I'm now going to construct the two bridges, for lack of a better term. Now they're not going to be pretty by any means, but then again, this project is not about aesthetics. It's not going to be sold at Neiman Marcus or something like that. It's just going to be practical to do something, and so I am doing the littlest I can cosmetically so I can do some good solid welds. What I'm going to do is weld these together, weld the two bridges together. You don't have to see this. This is kind of boring. It's just TIG welding again with ER80 fill rod and gas tungsten arc welding, DC electrode negative. These are chromoly, so all the metals are compatible, and so the weld should hold. Okay, what I've just completed with the two frames to hold up the bungee cord. Welding was a bit difficult because the pieces were not exactly fitted, but it is quite suitable for this purpose here. The next step is we're going to take the frame and we'll put one of the bridges here and the other one here. So the bungee cord would come across from one to the other and down to the pannier rack here and the pannier rack here. So it's going to look something like this. So again, I'm just going to do a quick weld of these onto the frame. To do that, we're going to have to hold the frame down, something, clamp it down here, something like this. Then we have to hold this, and we'll take a, let's see, put this in a vise like this, something like that. That may not work. Let's see, take another and get a straight piece. Well, let's try this. We take a piece of angle iron like this, clamp it something like this, that, then we take this, possibly try to clamp the angle iron to the top of the bridge, like something like that. Then we bring this up to over here, something like this. And of course, it is a very, very rude Goldberg arrangement, and of course it's not even. So we're going to have to take something and have the clamp up to force these both even, something like that. It's extremely rude Goldberg, but it's going to serve the purpose. Just have to hold this stable until I get the first pieces tacked on. Once they're tacked on, then I can get rid of all the rigging. So here we go. Now I have got the bridges welded to the frame. So this will essentially sit on the bicycle with the pannier rack perpendicular, so it's like this. say the pannier rack is where my arm is, the bungee cord would come up over these, and these will hold the bungee cord up, and the cake or the dessert will be inside here. So my next step is to put some sort of bottom on this. I'm going to keep it really simple. Let's turn it over like this. Some scrap metal. I'm going to have a couple of pieces like this lengthwise, and a couple of pieces, maybe actually probably just one piece widthwise like that. And that should be enough to prevent a tray or a serving tray from falling through. So I'm just going to weld these on here, then cut off the excess length. Here you go. The frame's at the bottom. Kind of reminds me of the jail scene from the film Gunsmoke back in the 60s. Well, now the next and final step will be to put something here so the cake or whatever's in here will not slide off. This will prevent it from sliding off on the side. We need something at the end, so I found these from my collection of silverware or remnants of silverware that I used for previous projects. I'll put two here and two here. I'm just going to tack weld them in place. Once those are done, that should pretty much finish the project. And this afternoon, I give it its first try to take a batch of brownies I just baked to a function later this week. Okay, those are not perfect. One of them I had a little help it a little bit with a little bit filler. This wasn't connecting, so let's see. Those are fine. So we're gonna let those cool off, but in the meantime, this is ready to try it out. So I'll be back with it on the bicycle and show you how it looks. Here you see the rack that's strapped down onto the bicycle with a batch of brownies wrapped in a towel to keep it warm. So that was the general idea of what this thing was supposed to do, and it looks like it might do it. I'm going to take my first ride with it. I do have to be careful. The pannier rack on this bicycle is quite narrow, so it could be quite tippy. But I'm going to try my best not to spill everything on the inaugural ride for this project.